for anyone who's holding themselves back or thinking, well, it has to be big, put that aside and go, if I can help one person, if I can make the day better for one person, then that was an action that made this world a better place.
Welcome, listeners, to our SoulNet studio. We are so happy. We're so excited today to be bringing you an old friend of mine, not because we're old, but we kind of are now. And he is so special to me. We met like over 20 years ago, and I'm going to give you a bio on Dr. Tom Bourdon. But first, I just want to say, Dana and I are here with you today to talk about your book. Tom, Thank you for being
here. To be here.
Welcome, Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, Dana. I'm so excited to do this.
Dr. Tom Bourdon is the founder of Next Level Impact, a consulting company based in Boston that provides organizational leadership coaching to individuals and teams for long-term success and growth. Oh, Tom, you're in the right place with our listeners because this is exactly what they're here for. With over 2 decades of providing organizational leadership to startups, nonprofits, and Fortune 100 companies, Tom's career has focused on social impact, DEI, leadership development, and organizational change. He holds a doctorate in organizational leadership, a master's in education, a bachelor's in business, and holds both ICF and BCC coaching certifications. He is a smart ass cookie and the most soulful, loving guy you'll ever meet. And we're happy to announce that he's now officially an author who has come on today to share his incredible expertise and experience with us about his book, his debut book called It Lit a Fire. It lit a fire!
There it is.
I was lucky enough to read, well, Dana too, to read like an advanced copy of the first few chapters. And we're so excited. I've pre-ordered my book. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it's funny even hearing you say the title, because sometimes when I say it to people, they're like, well, that doesn't sound, I don't know, maybe it should say this, but it's about what is it? It could be who knows what is it in some of us that has lit a fire, essentially to go create positive change in some way. That is really what this book is about. That is when I had to kind of distill, like, what am I doing with my life at this point? What am I here for? Where am I going? Like, I want to have impact. It's like so basic. I want to make this world better, right? And some of us have that. I don't think everyone has that, but some people have that fire. And often they don't understand it. They don't know what to do with it. They're scared to act. So this takes you through just the journey of an impact journey, really. How do you acknowledge it? What do you do with it? And how do you, in your own way, go create some positive change in the world? So that's what the book is.
Oh my gosh. I think that's one thing that bonds us is our desire to have an impact, a positive impact in a world that is scary and uncertain and cruel in a lot of ways. And so how do we light that, find our fire, and what does it look like for us to actually be a contributor to positive change?
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think all of us do have the spark. And I think for me and Dana, like, and other people we've interviewed and been with on the pod too, I think what happens in life is that our spark gets buried under rubble of trauma and under rubble of fear, and like just it gets buried, but it's always there. Like it's like our little soul spark.
Yeah.
And so on our podcast, we always are looking for people like you and your book to help us to find it and dig deep. And you talk about the pull.
Yeah.
You explore pull, passion, and courage.
Right. Yeah. I created a model. I call it the Firestarter Model. The only other thing I'll show you is my little Firestarter Model. Right. So pull, passion, and courage. I feel like because I've been doing this particular kind of work for so long, and I was like just thinking about my own journey, but also like so many like change makers that are out there. And I was kind of like exploring what are the commonalities, and I how do you kind of break down what's going on in them and how they move forward to have impact. And those were the three elements that I just noticed kept coming up over and over. And when I say, let me clarify also, I agree. I think we all have sparks in us. I don't think all of us allow the fire to really burn to go create the change. And that's what I'm looking at here is when you allow yourself to really connect those three elements and go create change. That's where I feel like some of us have that drive or feel like we want to, but don't know how. And some people feel a little pulls and move on.
Right.
And, or don't take the time to really break them down. And so when I describe the pulls, I kind of describe it as it's these voices, these feelings you get inside that say, pay attention, this matters. Often it's like, someone should do something. Someone needs to do something. And at what point are you going to go, oh, I need to do it. I need to be that someone who does something. So the pull, like, I think we have lots of pulls in life. I think it can very often shift based on life stages, right? Or events that happen to us or things that come into our life and then leave our life. And even when I think about my own life, I've had many different pulls, and sometimes they come on stronger, right? It's those things that they just keep playing in your mind. You keep thinking about it, and it's stirring some strong emotions in you. And those strong kind of key pulls, how do you take the time and allow yourself to go, I need to take this more seriously. And if I'm feeling so strongly about something, what's my part here?
I love that. I use a word with, I'm also a coach, about almost 30 years now in movement as well as Ayurveda. And I have a saying that I find a lot of people get stuck in their intuition. They have all these ideas and this ideation, but they lack that same action point. So I always think it's like, what good is our intuition, this soul's calling, if we don't actually put these things into place in some small way in our life? So I relate so well to that, not only personally, but also as someone who coaches others, Tom. It's so, I see it, people spinning the wheels a little bit.
That's right. And the other thing that I see that I find annoying is people that like complain about things like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, but like never take action. And there's lots of things that need fixing, right? Lots of things that need us to do something. But I realized how drawn I am to people who go, I need to go do something. And that's really because in the book, I have about 20 contributors, and all of them are people that I just admire because they're trying to make the world better. They're actively trying to do that. Not because they're told to, but because they want to.
Can I ask you a question on that? Because I'm really curious about, like, I love that these people are out there actively trying to make the world better. And in your experience of having interviewed them and had them as contributors, are they doing that through working on their own selves and then taking that out into the world? Or what is the process that a lot of these people that are being successful at taking this like ideation and making it into something that really feels purposeful and contributory?
Yeah.
Is there a common thread?
Well, I think the common thread that I found was, for most people, what ended up moving them towards whatever it is and actually taking action usually came from hardship in some way, right? Like a loss or a diagnosis or life event or a world event that really shook them. I think that's actually the commonality, is people that just, I talk about micro moments. That's the two other elements of the model, right? You got pull, passion, courage, these micro moments that are happening, and some of them really leave an impact on you. And then the macro movements, that's when you actually take the shift in life of some way, some sort. So yeah, I think, Dana, the commonality was they just cared so much, and they were people that had that fire, like, I have to be part of something. And I think courage is such a huge element also, like humongous. People are just, they wait to be like fully prepared, or they think someone else is going to do that better, or what if it backfires, all these things that stop. So I think there's definitely a risk taker element there also. And I don't want to have that come off wrong. It's not like you have to be the daredevil, you have to be the bravest person, but you go, this matters so much that I have to take the risk and do something.
I think it's fair, Tom, too, to say that, like that you need to do something. It might not be these big. I find when we're impacting change, it's not necessarily the big things that really move us forward. It's the smaller, those micro ones that you're talking about. So that action doesn't have to be grandiose. It could
Yeah.
be really something simple as making a phone call or like taking a different like route. I don't know. I mean, just I'm kind of pulling from scraps, but I think we often think it has to be these big things.
Right. So I'm remembering back to your question where you asked it. For some people, does it start like kind of with internal focus before it goes to external? So I actually think in chapter 1, Cynthia Celli, who you probably read her story, who's a friend and amazing, brilliant, but like we talk about kind of one of those big early micro moments that was a shift for her, where she was 19 and pregnant and in the welfare office and looked around and saw like, this is my life, this is where it's heading. Like four men in her life had just been killed through violence where she lived, and she's like, I need better for myself and my unborn son. And in her journey, really, when she talks about it, kind of that was the big shift moment where it was like, I've got to do something for myself and my son. And it's led her on this journey where now she like does all this work around empowering women so that they can go out and like live and lead amazing lives as well. So, it started with her, and now she tries to give this beautiful gift to others.
Right. Exactly. And there's a lot of stories in the book. There's about 20 contributors that share their personal stories of being fire starters, right? So they're kind of living examples of people who have gone from the spark that they have, and then they've heard the cry, the call, the pull,
Mm-hmm.
and then they've had the passion, and then like you talked about, they've taken a chance. They've had to lean into their courage to actually to follow that. And then they've done the movement, the action, and they've followed through. And it's that follow through where we have a bigger impact, right? Like a bigger social impact. And so all these people in your book have had incredible impacts. I mean, you've got famous people in there that are sharing. Then you've got people who are like Cynthia,
everyday change agents.
Yeah, game changers. So I just want to say that when I wrote my little book, my little children's book, so I had the pull. It was COVID. There were so many kids suffering with isolation and anxiety, and there was so much talk about anxiety and depression and youth and children. And I had suffered, I felt in isolation when I was a kid, when my dad left and my mom attempted suicide. And I was then left, to live with a friend's family. And I remember in my body, I felt isolated. In my heart, I was so afraid. I didn't know if my mom was going to survive. My dad was, living with another family and was not a part of my life. But then I thought, but I survived. And like, not only did I survive, like I thrived, and I thrived because I had community and I had friends and I had people around me that were so caring and so loving. And so I wanted to offer like something for these children. And I had this idea of like your heart being like a compass, right? Like sometimes when you're in the depths of despair, that you have to lean into your joy, you have to lean into your courage, you have to lean into your, like there was your kindness. You have to find ways to access feelings of calm in order to help yourself to move through these storms that you're in. And so I wrote it. And was it perfect? No. Was it, but I felt so called. And so I followed that. I took the pull, and I was so passionate about it because I felt like I was a kid once that suffered in isolation.
Can I test a theory on you with this? Megan. So I don't know, like, is everyone like, well, yeah, duh. But I had this like thing come to me recently when I was like really processing this idea of like the hardship, right? And then maybe it pushes you towards doing something for positivity, right? And I was like, I started thinking of like a scale, right? And like when the hard part weighs you down, it's almost like you have to rebalance the scale with positive. Like the negatives come down so much, you have to get things back to equilibrium, or even have, the positive outweigh the negative. So you can look at your childhood and the trauma and the hardship, right? You've come through it, you've learned, you have a story to tell, you have wisdom to offer. And then it's like, well, you could do nothing with that. That's it, the end. Or it like weighs on you and it had an impact on you, and you use that now to tip the scales to bring positivity out of it. I don't know. Is that
Okay.
like, is the scale thing?
I would say 1,000. Well, so both professionally and personally, in many different iterations, Tom, I would say 1,000%. I mean, you're speaking the language of Ayurveda, which is really about creating balance and homeostasis within mind and body. And when we're balanced state, we actually have the natural courage, that fire. We in Ayurvedic Sanskrit it's called Agni, and Agni fire resembles not just optimal digestion, but the fire that moves us forward, that keeps us uh, healthy and inspired in our life. And when it's burning appropriately, we naturally attract these things like joy and compassion and kindness and self-love. When that fire is burning too lightly, I would kind of say it brings out those like the people pleasers that don't have enough of, and I am a recovering people pleaser myself, but it brings out those parts of ourselves that don't feel good enough. So that fire is just a little bit dim. And the shadow expression, of course, on the other side is the fire and the rage that we see in some of the leadership in the world, where it is all around an ego base. So if we have a naturally kindled burning fire, we actually show up as this best expressions of ourselves. So, when Meg said that there is a spark in all of us, and I still do believe there is that spark in all of us, I think for a lot of people that's buried under a lot of like unhealed trauma, ancestral, like all of it. And it's just maybe too big that they will not unpack it in this lifetime.
Wow.
But this is it, Tom. This is your offering. Your book is very inspiring. And the stories and the contributors are just all like very inspiring, and like somebody can find a contributor in your book that they can relate to.
Absolutely, yeah. To put good into the world in some way, like in another one of the chapters, my friend Sherry Shepherd, who's comedian, actress, talk show host. I adore her, and for her, she was like, I'm in my 50s. I feel like, do I still have something to offer? Do people care about my story? I see so many women like me. She's like, we do have something to offer. I want to go out there and show women in their 50s we have a lot to offer to the world. And the other thing that really drives her is, I think like so many of us, like what we're seeing in the world, all of the divide, right? The divisiveness, the loss of humanity, all of this, like it pains her. So she's like, I'm going, like that's one of her major pulls, is like someone needs to do something to bring people together, and she tries to do it through laughter and joy and comedy, because that's her passion. That's her skill. She could go be funny and just tell dirty jokes or make fun of people. No, she's like, I'm going to bring people together through laughter. That is what I'm here to do.
Yeah, and she does it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the other thing that's so important that I try to get across in this book, is like, this is for everyone. This is not just for people who have a huge platform or people who are highly developed leaders or change. This is like every single one of us. This can be, the mom at home who is like taking care of a million people, maybe forgetting to take care of herself as much as she needs to also, right? But like, but feels something and wants to go do some, even those little small things to like make the world better, right? Not that she's not already doing that in a million ways, right? But like we feel different pulls.
Yeah, we do. We do.
I feel like sometimes we get lost in our roles, right? Like the I feel like what your book really speaks to is the individual journey beyond the
Absolutely.
roles,
Yeah.
like you said. So you can be a mom and you can be a CEO and you can be all those things, but there's something deeper within us that speaks to us in the whispers, like you said, that pull that you talk about, to all of us. And we don't know, unless we slow down and kind of listen to that pull. We often, feel disharmony in a lot of ways of our lives, right? And we're not quite sure why. And it's just often not listening to that voice, right?
Absolutely. What I ended up doing with this book, when I started putting it together, I was like, what elements do I want? And I actually did incorporate about 5 or 6, maybe even more, like exercises in the book to tap into that more, to like slow down and explore. Because I think for a lot of people, it's difficult to dissect it and understand it and to know what to do with it. So just like simple exercises that you can do to really tap in more and take those first few brave steps, or maybe you've been doing it for a while and to keep going. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have an example for us, Tom, that you could share of like one of the exercises that you find people really respond well to? Is there something you can offer our listeners in that way?
Sure. I mean, oh gosh. Well, so one that I like is I call it the Firestarter checkup. So for the book, I kind of have it in 3 parts. The first part's when you're in the emerging phase of your journey, like the early stages, trying to understand what it is and be brave to take those first steps. And the next part of the book is the ongoing stage. When you're in it, you're doing the work. Eventually, like people are turning to you, trying to learn from you. You're kind of taking on sometimes the leadership roles in these, whatever they are, actions. And then the final stage is the sustained stage. And I love it's my book session. I love the end of my book.
Say it. We're all about self.
It's really about it's about, passing the torch, letting others take the lead, leaving your legacy in whatever way that might be. So the Firestarter checkup exercise is kind of when you're in it in that ongoing stage and you need to keep going and you're looking at what gives you fuel and energy and helps you keep going and what drains you. So because this is hard. I mean, like impact focused work is hard. It's exhausting. There's all these things that could take you away from it from different reasons. So like that's an example of one of the exercises of how do you go and then keep going, and how do you recognize what's making it harder, and what do you do about that? So
what do you do about that, Tom, on a personal level? What keeps you going?
Ooh, Dana.
Ooh, you're in the hot seat, Tom.
What led me to write this book? This is kind of a big, that's like, whoa. I didn't know if I could keep going just because I had been kind of in this work for, over 20 years. It ended up becoming defined as like diversity, equity, and inclusion work, DEI, right? And like my last role was like leading DEI for a global company. And then the role got discontinued and, the whole field's been demonized and, well, by some, and trying to cancel it. Such heart-centric work that has such amazing, intentions behind it. So I think what has kept me going and led me to write this book is to really kind of understand my values and like what the big picture is, what I'm trying to do, right? I don't try to do DEI, and if you tell me I can't do DEI, then I stop and I no longer can have an impact, right? Like, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to create spaces where people feel valued and they feel like they matter and they feel like their voice matters, right? So what keeps me going is it, and has meant so much with this book, is recognizing that like when I connect with people and do the work and empower them, if I'm able to, then they have the energy to go create positive change. It's like this the ripple effect, right? That's the subtitle of my book. Let your inner spark be ignite a change reaction, right? So that's what keeps me going.
I love that, Tom, so much. And do you know, it reminds me of, we're all kind of the same generation. Do you remember the old Clairol commercial? And they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends,
Oh,
and they'll tell two friends.
oh my God, yes.
Today's episode is brought to you by Clairol.
Oh my God, I love it. So I just want to say, well, that's so awesome. And also, Tom, thank you for that, because what you've also just shared and like shared with our listeners and shown us in that moment where you talked about what keeps you going, and you're practicing what you write about, is the fact that when things get really hard and things are taken away from us, opportunities, you found a way to stay in your passion and be courageous, and you are living what you write about, and you have brought in all of your work, your important inclusive work that brings people together, does not divide. And you knew that it was, now more than ever, the work is so necessary.
Yeah.
And you found a way to share people's stories, make them feel valued, not feel valued, but you've honored them. You've honored their lives, their stories, those moments that mattered. You've brought them into your book. So you have literally brought them into a space on the page. And I could cry because you're living exactly what you are writing about. Because in right now, I think what holds people back, and when people can't feel worried or scared to take the risk, to follow the pull, to follow their passion, to step into that courage that you write about and you talk about. I think what I can speak from my experience and people that I talk to, often it's something that is triggering, like is taken away, like the loss of a job, the loss of a department, the loss of so you experience that, and then you just shifted, you pivoted.
Yeah, that was like one of those macro movements for me, where I was like, what do I do, where to go in
Exactly.
life? And I really had to kind of find the underlying theme in everything I had been doing, and then say, okay, so what do I do next? Like, if there's no jobs for me to apply to, right?
What are you going to create?
Right. What am I going to create? And really, what's the end goal? I think another thing for me at this stage, I am, a couple decades in, at a stage now where, I've done a lot of leading, and now I can support other leaders. I can grow other leaders. I can say, I don't need to be out there making the change. I can empower you to make the change. And then that's my version of making the change, right? Like I can.
Yeah, well, that's the change reaction, right?
Yeah,
like that's the ripple, like that's the passing the torch you talked about.
Yeah.
And what's keeping you in it, right? What keeps you inspired is that the helping other leaders.
Yeah.
Look at us threading it all together here.
Hey.
Yay! I know, it's such important work, and it's so inspiring and empowering. Everything in the book. I'm so grateful that you have shared your knowledge and these stories with people. Your book will empower and inspire so many people.
I hope so. I've gotten some really incredible feedback. It's early, but people are finding it inspiring. And I think what's most meaningful to me is they're like, I need this right now because I'm really frustrated. I'm really sad by certain things going on. And I know I want to do something, but like I'm not pushing myself forward. And this is helping me do something. It does not have to be big, but do something.
Exactly.
Do you find too, Tom, I find it really fascinating how everyone's highlighting all their big successes. So we always feel when we're working on our individual selves, like we have to do, again, those big type of things. But those really small actions start to get us going in the right direction. But I think as individuals, we just go, well, that can't possibly be enough.
I think that's interestingly another common thread that I did see from a lot of people, including the ones who have had huge impact. That line that sounds a little cliche, but they really mean it. Like, if I know I've helped one person, then that made it worth it. And I think for anyone who's holding themselves back or thinking, well, it has to be big, like, put that aside and go, if I can help one person, if I can make the day better for one person, then that was an action that made this world a better place. And to go outside of ourselves and go, what can I do? What can I do? Maybe it's you're at the grocery store and someone is checking you out and they look miserable, and you're going to give them a warm smile and say something kind. And maybe that was the one action that made this world a little bit better today, right? And it can be anything. Don't hold yourself back from going, I can have impact. I need to use what's in me to make the world better.
I think the risk you talk about, like, sometimes those little things, like, I think we get stuck in, like, it's not going to be good enough. It doesn't matter. Who really cares? Like, all the things. But I think what your book does is it reminds us that if it matters to you, the individual, if it matters to you, you're in your heart, like, if coming together with a group and starting a podcast, or coming together with a group and starting a running club or a forest bathing group, or, whatever it is,
writing a book,
like, if it matters to you, that's the spark, that's the fire. If it matters, identifying that it matters, and then putting some, like, a little bit of effort in, and taking a little bit of courage to take those steps forward. If it matters to you, it matters.
And it matters to a lot of other people. Trust that it matters to a lot of other people. Can I share, like, a quick,
of course,
yes,
story in the book that just came to mind with it? So I actually, my childhood hero contributed to this book. So when I was young, I was a diver, like springboard diving. And if you all know Greg Louganis, who was like the most incredible diver, and he was, in the Olympics in the 80s. And what you just made me think of when you were saying that is, his impact journey. He ended up coming out first as a gay man, and then a year later as HIV positive. In the early days of HIV, where he was like, the only people who were being outed then, he was looking at, Rock Hudson and Freddie Mercury. He's like, because they were in the hospital or they had died. And he was like, he said, I felt like I was on an island with no phone. He felt like he was the only one inside of there, like, scared to, talk. And then he wrote a book. Okay, not everyone has to write a book, but he told his story. He put himself out there. Sometimes it's just coming out in your own way for whatever it might be. Coming out can look like a lot of different things, right? But, like, he said, I didn't do it because I knew, like, I wanted to have the, he said, I just knew it because, the truth will set you free. Greg had that going on in his mind. The truth will set you free. And he was, felt so alone, right? But he ended up sharing his story, and it impacted so many people. So the reason I bring that up is when you were saying, like, if it feels important to you, know that it's going to be important to probably a lot of other people. But even if it's just that one person, like, just be a little brave if you can and take an action.
Can I just say, Tom, I will share that, like, that's a very big part of my story too. So I have alopecia. I've had it since, I've been bald for like 20 years now. And I've been mostly like, I dealt with it fairly well in the earlier years, but there was carrying a lot of shame around it. And I would wear wigs. Being bald as a woman is pretty easy to hide. I can wear wigs, not have to talk about it. But I had this little voice inside of me that said I was hiding from myself, and I was hiding from the world. Every time I went out in a wig, I knew that when I went home, I pulled off the wig and everybody wasn't seeing myself. So I actually challenged myself to a bald challenge. So this is what I knew. I'd done a lot of work, but then I had these little lingering pieces. So in the middle of January, for whatever reason, I decided to do a 30 days of bald challenge. And I decided I was going to go everywhere and as a bald woman. I'd done like sports and athletics. But I put on a party dress and I went out as a bald woman. I got laughed at by like a little girl who was like, oh my gosh, was it probably the hardest moment I've ever had? Because she like laughed at me like to my face, but that's what children do. But that particular like process of having like really stepped out and did not allow myself to hide opened up doors for me to be a mentor for others, the people that would actually come up to me. And I learned that I all of a sudden became the inspiration for someone else to have the courage to be themselves. And I think whether we are, gay, straight, bald, haired, like we all have something that we want to come out about or we feel shame about. And so I think that is just so powerful, like what you share about Greg. But we all have our micro stories of that.
Greg shares that when he wrote his book and had his process of just saying, here's who I am, here's my life, he said all of the things that he thought were, the bad things, the hindrances, gay, HIV positive, dyslexic, had been through like abusive relationships. He said, I realized once I put those out there bravely, those were my superpowers.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like for you to go out bald, even for that girl to laugh at you, to be like, this is my superpower. Like,
yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I love that. And if we can start celebrating those pieces that we think are not our superpowers, like they're the things that we don't like about or we want to hide about ourselves. But like you said, they're the ones that make everybody feel like it's like you give permission for everybody else to be themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, can we just talk about when it's coming out? Because I pre-ordered my copy.
Well, mid-April is when it will be out. Wherever you normally go buy a book, you're going to find it there. Online anyways. You can go to my website, itlitafire.com.
I think it's going to be on my bedside table forever, Tom.
Well, it better be, Meg.
I know, because we love you. And I just like, we're here in Vancouver, you're in Boston. And so you're going to be living on our bedside table and, giving us this courage and reminding us of our inner fire and how to light it, keep it lit.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I hope people just use this book to go create change in their own way, like just to feel that inspiration. If they need a little assistance, if they need to not feel alone, I've created, a Firestarter community on Facebook if you want to connect with other people who really are feeling it here. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Oh, I'm excited too. We want to say thank you for bringing your ideas and your book to our community. It's such a pleasure and it's an honor to be with you in this space.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.